Welcome to No Borders with Brian and Carrie. Today what we are going to be discussing are some of the risks and challenges that come with retiring early and traveling full-time.
Yeah, now obviously the financial insecurity of this whole thing, you're not going to have a paycheck coming in, so that could create a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you've gone your entire life, your entire adult life, and you have been receiving that paycheck weekly, monthly, bi-weekly,
Right.
You just are dependent on that, and you base your budget around that. You know that, in 2 more weeks you have another paycheck coming in. There's just that reliance on it. When all of a sudden you've given that up and you're now relying on whatever other sources of income you're going to be relying on.
Right. Yeah, that could be scary.
It can be very scary.
Now, if you budget, like we've talked about in the past, and spend within your means, it might not be as scary because you're probably debt-free. But for a lot of us, that's not the case. So, yeah, it's a roll of the dice, and it is a little bit scary.
Yeah, I think it's just an adjustment period. I know for us, when you first walk away, of course, you're super excited. You've made that decision to just retire and you're done with your job. You don't have the 9 to 5. You don't have to get up that next morning and head into work. But then that reality starts to kind of strike that, wait a minute, I don't have any more income.
Yeah, no, obviously we did talk this through and we thought about it well beforehand. So we knew that the time would come where we were going to say, wait a minute, what are we going to do here? And we were trying to do some things to alleviate some of that pressure.
And you may have sources of income that you are going to be relying on, but how predictable are they? With your job, you had a paycheck that you knew what that paycheck, for the most part, unless you were in sales or something, but you knew what that paycheck was going to be. And in retirement, a lot of time, those sources that you're going to be relying on are a little more unpredictable, and there's many of those different sources. One thing that a lot of people rely on is their money might be invested in the market, and unfortunately that market is volatile. When we first started our travels, we knew that the volatility could be a major issue, and so we did planning with that. We had put away 2 years spending money in a separate account that was just invested very safely so that we could access it whenever we needed. Because you don't want to have to access money in a down market.
Right. We knew that money was in a place where it really didn't matter what the market was going to do, especially coming out of COVID. We had no idea what the market was going to do. It's rebounded, which is great, but it's still volatile. It still fluctuates quite a bit. So we had 2 years put away, and thank God.
Thank goodness we did, because we didn't anticipate, we were coming out of COVID when we started traveling, so we really kind of expected to start to see the market recover faster than it did. It ended up taking a really long time to recover. And so thank goodness we did have that money put away, because we didn't have that feel or need that in those down markets that we had to sell or take money out of those accounts, because then it is a loss. If you sell it, it is a loss. So to just be able to relax, we had our savings to the side. So that's one of those unpredictable, once again, areas. And so I guess what we would highly suggest is make sure you have that fund aside. It doesn't maybe have to be 2 years, but I would say at least 6 months of living costs.
I would say 6 months for sure, and we had the 2 years from other means. We sold our houses and stuff like that. So we had 2 years, which gave us kind of an opportunity to get out there and see what this is all about, really get our feet wet and figure out how we're going to move forward. Now, one of the biggest questions we get, and a concern of ours at the time, was what about healthcare? A lot of research went into healthcare before we left, what we would qualify for, what was even out there, because we never had a reason to really research it.
No, we had never had, we both had our insurance through our jobs, so we just never really needed to necessarily look deeper into, especially something that was going to cover us outside of the States. But that is a concern for a lot of people, because if you're not of Medicare age yet, what are you going to do for health coverage? And, thankfully there are a lot of options out there that can cover you. I use Safety Wing, and that is worked great for me. Brian uses a global plan. Right. So there are plenty of options. If you need a full health medical coverage plan, you really want to get a global plan like Brian has.
Get a global plan, yeah. And it's not terribly expensive at all. As a matter of fact, it's very inexpensive if you're used to paying those healthcare costs that we accumulate in the United States. So it is very affordable. Now it's going to fluctuate with age, with your health, with your deductible. A number of other things come into play. So you just have to do your own research on those, but I can assure you that they're less expensive than you might think.
Right, and I think that it's affordable, and especially when you compare it to what you possibly were paying, even with your insurance through your company. And then one of the other kind of positives, especially if you are looking at traveling full-time in retirement, that in other countries it's way more affordable to have all of those basic care things done. Right. So as far as your preventative care going in for just having, you had a colonoscopy done in Thailand, you can go and have those kinds of things done, the health checkups, and for a fraction of the cost. So the insurance that we carry is really just to cover more so emergency situations and also long-term care.
Long-term care, yes.
Because you don't want to be stuck without that. But it's not to cover all the basics and everything that you might have done. It's not covering our prescriptions and everything. The next unpredictable area is inflation. Boy, we have seen inflation during our 3 years of travel. What we used to budget for our travels and what we now have to budget, we have had to increase, not just because our desire of a nicer accommodation has gone up, but also the cost of all of those things have gone up.
Yeah, and we Americans or Canadians or you Brits, you look at the Western side of the world where, gosh, inflation, it's worldwide. It's going on all over the place. And it's something that you can escape a little bit in certain parts of the world. But even in those parts of the world, things are going up. So it is something that you have to keep in mind moving forward. It's something that we talk about quite a bit. Like Carrie just mentioned, we're increasing our budget, not necessarily because we want to, or we want nicer accommodations, or we want to eat out more often. It's because we're going to need to. Yeah,
and one of the advantages I would say of traveling full time is that you can kind of adjust. Like we were saying, there are areas where inflation hasn't been hit as much, or the dollar is worth just a lot more in those areas. So you do have that ability to kind of go to those areas to keep your costs lower, or blend them in with some of the higher cost areas to balance that budget out.
Right.
But it is just something to be aware of, because we can always estimate the amount of inflation each year and what you need to prepare for in your retirement, but there is no guarantee for sure of what you're going to be seeing those costs rise up to.
Well, and that goes back to our health insurance as well. The older we get, our health insurance costs will go up as well.
Yes.
And we know that. It will happen. I'm not sure when it will happen, but it could happen this next cycle for me. I'm 54 now. So my insurance company might go, hey, listen, you're in your mid-50s now, so it's going up. And that could happen. So that brings us to long-term sustainability. How do you do this forever? Well, Carrie just mentioned you go to different parts of the world. You go to where your dollar will stretch further. That's something that we will be doing here the first of the year 2025.
Right, we are heading to Mexico, that is when we are heading to Argentina.
Right, Argentina.
Yeah, so doing South America, which we keep hearing from a lot of people, the dollar is going a long ways there. Hopefully it still is when we get there.
And it might not be, we'll see.
We'll see, yeah. But, so I think that it's balancing it and making sure that we're saying adjusting your budget. Well, you can't just keep adjusting your budget up, because when you decided to retire and travel full time, you probably came up with that budget of what your monthly or what you need to have available to by a certain age when you do decide to maybe settle down somewhere.
You pick that budget for a reason, because that's how much money you have. And so it all kind of plays together.
Yeah, so I think that there are ways around this to make it sustainable for a long time. And I know just in the short period of time, we'll consider it short, to some it's long, but 3 years we've been traveling, we have had to do that, where we'll have a year where we spent a little bit more than what we had planned it. We knew that, but the next year, which is this year right now, we were like, okay, we need to save some money because we spent a little bit more than what we were comfortable with last year. So this year we just adjust where we're going and kind of the things we're doing. We may not do those really expensive excursions or stuff.
Right. We may cut back on the beverages a little bit from here to there.
I don't know if he's been doing that so much.
Maybe. We'll talk about that later.
The next area is social isolation. You know, when you have been so used to going into a job and you've been, you know, my work, I loved my job. I love the people I work with. It was kind of a work family, which it is for a lot of people. And all of a sudden you're taken away from that. And, you know, and especially for us, then you're out on the road, we're traveling, we're not around other people. You know, fortunately we do meet up occasionally with people though.
Yeah, fortunately she likes me well enough to stick around and talk to me because I've got a gift to gab. And, you know, it is a real thing, though, when you're used to corresponding with your friends and your family. Thank God for social media. You can keep in touch that way. But, yeah, it is a thing. We get this question a lot on YouTube is how do you guys deal with that, with this, with your friends, with your family? Well, it's a sacrifice that you know, we chose to make, but at the same time, with Facebook, with cell phones and everything else that's involved with social media, we do feel connected.
We do. You know, it was interesting because when we were leaving, one of our draws to leave and do what we're doing is because we were so tired of the mundane, repetitive, every weekend kind of doing the same thing. But then you're moved away from it, and then we look forward to going home on our times at home, and then doing some of those things and doing those weekend get-togethers with friends and stuff. You know, that is something that I would say we very much miss because you don't get to do that. You know, I mean, we're meeting up with strangers. After we're done meeting them, they're usually not strangers anymore. I mean, they have now become long-time friends. Yeah. But, you know, you don't have those things to look forward to. You don't have the events. You don't have the social gatherings that you're used to going to.
The backyard barbecues, the same stories that are always funny over and over again.
To him.
Love that. Love that. I miss that. And when we do go home, those are the things we look forward to. Those are the things I look forward to, I know.
Yeah.
And so it just makes those times that much more exciting.
So now the next area is culture shock. When you are traveling, you are going to experience culture shock. And honestly, you experience it even going home a little bit. You have that reverse culture shock.
Right.
And, you know, but every place we travel to, the customs are different, the food is different, the language is different, the currency is different, you know, transportation is different, housing is set up differently. Everything is different.
Everything's different. It is very stimulating. There is work involved to it, and if you take it in stride and just kind of adjust to it the best you can, it doesn't seem like it's that much work.
Right.
You know, here we times everything by 3 when it comes to the currency. You know, we're hungry right now. So, you know, we might get to our next destination and we times it by 10, and then you come pretty close to what that value is. So that's why when we do go home, it's $1. It's $5.
So easy.
It's just so easy. You don't have to think about it. So it's one of those things where there is culture shock, yes, but at the end of the day, you know, everybody's the same.
Everybody is the same.
Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to live their life. Everybody wants to be happy. And it just if you keep that in mind, the culture shock isn't that big of a deal.
It isn't, and I would just guide anybody who's either already started traveling or getting ready to start traveling in retirement, is that just know that going in that you are going to face that in every location that you go to, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's just relax with it, and you will get used to it over time. I think in the beginning it hit us a lot harder. That having to learn all of those things hit us harder. I think because we may be stressed over it a little bit, like we need to know this. You really don't need to know it all. You don't need to know, you know, before we get to a new location, and we might even be on the airplane, I'm looking up to see what the currency conversion is for the next place so that we at least kind of know what we should be paying for a taxi or, and just kind of those basics. But you'll learn to just kind of relax with those things a little bit so that they're not so overwhelming, because I think they used to be a little more.
You know, in the beginning, we both wanted to go to South Southeast Asia. That was something that we both really wanted to do, but we didn't because we were intimidated by it.
Yeah.
We thought it'd be too much for us to handle all at once. So we did baby steps. We went to Spain. We got to the point where, hey, this is comfortable. We know there's not so much of a culture shock in these countries, so we'll start there. By the time we got to Southeast Asia, it was just as easy as any other country we'd been to, and we probably could have gone there right out of the gate if we'd just known. We had a comment last week on our YouTube channel that, hey, I'm really nervous about this, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to, I can't remember which country they were going to, but they were nervous. They were actually great. That's a good, fun, exciting feeling. I can guarantee you, once your boots are on the ground, you're going to fall right into rhythm. You're going to have any problems at all.
Yeah.
Sure, there's going to be a learning adjustment. Sure, there's going to be some currency, a time change, food differences, language. You'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best example because we were so nervous going into Southeast Asia just for that overwhelm, and then got there and we just didn't experience that at all. So just go in knowing that even if you are overwhelmed a bit, you're going to figure it out and it's going to be okay.
Okay, are there any health risks or potential health risks to doing what we're doing? This is something we get a lot. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? We get that a lot. It may happen. It could happen anywhere. It really doesn't matter where you're at.
Right, and I think that, there are additional risks, obviously, that come. First off, you're leaving the country. You are leaving what you are comfortable with, what you have known your entire life, the doctor that you just call up and you go in and see the same person. You're leaving all those comforts and conveniences. But then there's also different risks as well. Back when we were in the States, we would go to work. We would come home, we might go out and do something different, but here we're on trains and buses and doing, you're in other countries, you're on cobblestone, you're on, let me tell you, you don't walk and have your face looking down at all at a phone because you will probably fall in a hole in numerous of the countries that we've been to.
And you know what? If you're walking down the sidewalk looking down at your phone, you should fall in a hole.
We've learned
it's so annoying to me. Get off your phone.
Get off your phone.
I'm going to run into you.
But so there are additional risks that do come along with traveling full time that you may not have at home. You have all those conveniences of also just getting in your car and driving to a place. I don't know. We do find that there are a lot of times where, everything, we'll be even just walking upstairs at a place and we'll be like, this isn't standard.
I almost fell.
Because in the United States, we're so used to everything has to be so cut and dry to a complete code and set standard. Let me tell you, anywhere outside of the States, that is not the way it is.
No,
they have their own rules.
It's not the code.
Yeah.
I think one of the perfect examples would be in your hometown, wherever you're from, you know exactly where the hospital's at. You've probably been to the emergency room at that hospital. You know how it works. You'll probably be in a waiting room for 4 hours before you get to see a doctor. You know all that going in. If something should happen to us today, knock on wood, and here in Hungary, we know where the hospital is at, but we don't know how everything works. And so that is something that hopefully we'll never have to find out.
Fingers crossed we don't cross that road. Okay, so now the other area is travel fatigue. This is an area that I guarantee you, it doesn't matter how well traveled you are going to face it. I think people, when we first started traveling, we were just gung-ho. You're excited, you hit the road running, right? You get to your first location, you're bored very quickly because you're excited to see everything. You're sightseeing every single day. And so you're ready to move on to the next location. And then you do that a few months in a row. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm worn out. Yeah.
And we've hit a couple times. I wouldn't say too much, but a couple times. It usually comes after we fast travel.
Yes.
We fast traveled through Europe and we fast traveled through Romania. Romania was a little slower than Europe, but still fast for what we were used to. And we got to Croatia, I remember, and we just hunkered down. Didn't get a lot done in Croatia. And then by the time we got into Italy, we were busy with our YouTube, which we very much enjoy doing. It's turned into a really fun hobby for us. But we got halfway through Italy and we had to slam the brakes on and just take a week off.
Right. You know? And, I think that we very much have learned that fast moving through Italy or through Central Europe, we were moving every few days. It was like every 4 days we're moving. That we just absolutely know is not for us at all. We do little bleeps of that if the timing is right, but otherwise we are a month in each location.
Right.
And, but it's also the fact that when you are in these locations, it's the sightseeing as well. Even if you're in a place for a month, that doesn't mean that we are out and about sightseeing every single day. The best way I always tell people is we are not on vacation. We are just living our life somewhere else. And if you were living at home, you are not going every day and going, where should we go today?
Right.
What new things should we go see? You wouldn't go do that. You may just go to the grocery store that day. You may get together with some friends for a drink or dinner. You may do something, but you're not going to have an entire day filled with sightseeing and adventuring.
Well,
it's exhausting.
You're going to take a nap too.
We're
going to get our naps in.
Right.
We're going to do these things. And our regulars have heard us say all this in the past about getting burned out and keeping it as a lifestyle, not a vacation. And I think that's very important to remember. That's kind of why we keep hammering it home. For those of you that are planning on doing a slow travel, pace yourself.
Very much pace yourself. And I think that also with that, it's the realization that it's okay to be bored.
Yeah.
Because you'd be bored at home too. So it's okay to be bored and traveling. You don't feel guilty about that. You don't feel guilty for taking a nap. You're just living your life in a different location, and it's okay to have those days that, we go and we venture one day. As for instance, we'll have days we go and walk 8 to 9 miles. The next day, I'm kind of like, I don't have 8 to 9 miles in me anymore each day.
Right.
So that next day we may just go to the walk to the park and grab a beer and, just keep it.
Just do your daily
figure
stuff.
what works for you, I guess.
Do your laundry. I'm going to get a haircut today.
Right.
Just things like that you would normally do in an everyday life. And I think if you treat it like an everyday normal life, then you don't burn out.
The next area is going to be logistical challenges. This kind of goes along with everything else. You are going to face every place that you get to. You're going to have to figure out the navigation of all of it. How do we use the bus system? How are we using the train? Just how do you get from point A to point B? Yeah,
this is something that we've learned the hard way. I think in the beginning we were a little bit intimidated to jump on the bus or the tram or what have you. We forced ourselves to do it and discovered it was very easy to do. So we would encourage you to, if you're not used to it, if you're from New York City or Chicago or some of these places with a public transportation system, with trains and everything else, you might be fine with it, but that's not where we come from. So we did have to learn how to use it relatively quickly, and we found out that it's super easy.
It's super easy, but I will say, even with it being super easy as far as you're going to figure out where it is, you're going to figure out how to buy the ticket, I'm going to tell you it's going to be the one area you're going to mess up on more than any other area. And this goes for everybody who travels. I don't care how long you've traveled, because every country, their transportation is different.
They're
so
all
the train
different,
system is different. The train may not be on time. The train may just not show up. You may get on the wrong train. We've done all of these things.
We've done all of these
things. And we feel pretty well traveled.
We feel pretty well traveled, and we've done some of these things on more your long-term trains and buses and whatnot. The public transportation within the cities are usually pretty easy.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But we have gotten on the wrong train, got off on the next stop, got on the next train going back the other way. Yeah, we've done that.
Yeah, we've done it. Been there, done that. So just be patient.
Now, the other question we get on logistics a lot is what about visas and how does the visa work? What's the best way of figuring out if you need a visa or not? Well, if you're going into Europe and the Schengen, you don't need, on most cases, most passports, you don't need a visa to come into Europe. You get 90 days, then you have to get out. We've done Schengen videos before. If you want more explanation on that, go watch those. We're not going to get into that right now. You do have to have a visa to get into, say, Vietnam. You have to have a visa to get into Thailand. There are countries that you have to get into with a visa. And what you need to do is you need to go to the website of that country and figure out what you need to do to get in based off your passport.
Yeah, so I mean, it is another step that you do have to navigate, but once again, it's not hard. The other question that we do get on the Schengen as well is, do we need to have, when we're coming into that area, do we need to have a return ticket?
Right.
We have never, ever once been asked for a return ticket. First off, when you enter Schengen, you can go to all of those countries, so for them to ask for a return ticket for 3 months from now, potentially, doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you don't even know what country you're going to be in. So I would say don't worry about that. We've never been asked for that return ticket.
We've had one case where on that website I was telling you about, the country required an exit ticket, and that was Thailand. We had that exit ticket. We got up to customs. He didn't even ask for it.
Right.
Didn't even ask for it, stamped us, we were in, no worries. But I'd still encourage you to get it just in case they do ask. It just depends on the agent. But that's only been that one country where we were even required to have one. Safety concerns. Safety concerns in any particular country, you need to also get on the old interweb and do some research on where you're going and what to expect when it comes to crime, when it comes to any political unrest, anything like that that you might feel insecure about. You're going to find this information on that country's website.
Yeah. There's also the concern beyond that of what if you're in a country when there's a natural disaster or something, a war breaks out in a nearby country or whatever those things are. You know, you just want to make sure that, you know, we just recently did a video on how to stay safe while traveling where we go into a lot more in depth on this. But make sure that if your country has a program that you can register with, so they keep you informed of anything that might be going on or because you're not going to know. You don't know about a lot of the things that are going to be happening in the countries that are nearby or the safety concerns, or if the level gets escalated where you're at. So register on there.
Or if there's adverse weather conditions on the way or anything like that. You'll get put on an email list, and you'll get email or even a text. Yeah,
if it's a very higher level, you know, we'll get a text message so that we're aware right away of the situation going on. So with the U.S., it's called the STEP program, and I'm not sure what it would be called in other countries, but you can look that up and find one. One thing we very much had to adjust to, mainly myself, because I'm very much set this way, is the lack of routine. You know, I was a very routine-based person. I got up in the morning, worked out, made my lunch, went off to work, came home. You know, I mean, just really had a very structured day.
Made me dinner.
Made dinner. You know, but you had a very structured day, and then all of a sudden you are either retired, staying home, or you're traveling, and you're on the road, and a lot of the time we really struggle to find that routine.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. We have just recently, after 3 years almost, got on a set schedule, so to speak. I mean, we've known about this for a while, and we try and get into a routine, but now we're actually putting time limits on the amount of work we do in the morning, when we shoot videos or podcasts in this case. So we have a start and a finish. Right. And I think that is something, back to that burnout that we talked about earlier, something that's really helped us in that category as well.
Well, it definitely helps because, you know, I mean, it'd be kind of like showing up to work one day and your boss going, well, when am I done with work? And they go, I don't know. I don't know. We'll let you know later. You know, so for us, no different. We just kind of have set to have an end time for the work that we're doing based on what we're doing. And so, yeah, that has been helping a lot. But, you know, I think that just lack of routine when you are, you know, the working out and, you know, when you're changing locations all of the time, especially even changing once a month, you have to get back into a new routine. Where's your walk going to be? You know, all of that.
You got to find out your system. Yeah, you know, we have found that the more time you give us, the more time we're going to work on editing a video or writing up a video or you know, it's funny how our workout sessions, our exercise sessions don't get any longer the amount of time we have.
We're very clear on that.
We have a time.
Structured.
We have a very structured time, 15 minutes.
20
minutes. Yeah. Depending on how long that particular video is, and then it's done.
And then it's done.
But when it comes to our work, we tend to, the more time you give us, the more time we spend. So we're stopping that. We're giving ourselves a schedule. and we're going to stick to it.
Yeah, so I think that, kind of the moral of that one is we have now figured out, and I'm sure that this will morph and veer into something totally different again, but we have figured out a routine for us, and you'll figure out a routine for you as well. That in the beginning, it's very nice to not have a routine because you've had a routine probably your entire life, and then you will start to crave a little bit of a routine.
Yeah, a little bit of structure.
Yeah, have a little structure.
A little discipline. That's what they say about kids. They need discipline.
Discipline. Maybe we do too.
I definitely know a little bit of discipline, yes. Okay, so when you quit your job and you start to slow travel, how are you going to maintain it? Is there other ways to bring in any kind of income at all to help kind of push those years forward so you can do this for as long as you want?
Yeah, and I think that in the beginning, there are ways you can. There's actually a lot of different ways that you can bring in extra income, but they're not as easy as what you previously had done, which was just go look for a job, find a job, and then go to the job. When you're trying to find something that's going to work with time changes, schedules, and is your internet going to work as good in each location that you're in if you're doing something, say, that's online, so there's a lot of variables that are in play to figure out a job on the road, something that you're going to be able to take with you to do. Now, say that you are traveling full-time, slow traveling, and you find a destination that you would like to stop and stay for a longer period of time. In some areas, this isn't a problem at all, but in some areas, there are going to be a lot of legal things that you need to figure out and cross that bridge. And a couple of them are your taxes. You have to find out what the tax implications are in each area that you're going to be staying. There's a lot that goes into that. For us, we never stay in an area long enough that we have to do that. We pay our taxes in the States. You're always going to pay your taxes in the States unless there's a bilateral agreement or whatever that is called.
Even then, I think they usually get you. Even then, there's a bilateral agreement. If you're paying your taxes in one country, there's some relief in the U.S. So there's some. We're not experts on this because we don't need to be. So you need to look that up if you plan on staying someplace long-term and paying their taxes.
Right, and then you also want to look into, you might have any kind of implications for actually being able to stay there if you do plan on working. Even if you are working online but you're staying there long-term, they may see that as income coming in while you're there. Especially if you've gotten like a temporary residency, it's absolutely going to be seen as income coming there. So just make sure and check all of those legal ramifications as well, because you wouldn't want to be stuck. That would definitely ruin your retirement.
That would ruin your retirement, and I would get professional assistance. What about relationship strains? We get this a lot as well. How do you put up with each other full-time, 24/7, every day, all the time? I honestly don't know how Carrie does it. It's easy for me. I don't know how she does it, I'll be honest. Now, we talked this through extensively before we left, before we decided to do this, before we quit our jobs, before we did anything crazy. We did talk about this, and the questions were, how do you want to travel? Do you want to fast travel? Do you want to slow travel? Do you want to settle down in one spot for 3 months, 1 month at a time? And we kind of landed back on the same page every time. And I think as long as we stick to that, like we have been, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a real great question people have. Because it is, there are some relationships that may be challenged more than others while traveling full time. We have learned a really good balance between, like you were saying, we did discuss all of those things about how we were going to travel when we finally started traveling. But since we've been on the road, we've had to veer and change those, because there were things that, like, you could have handled moving a little bit faster than what we were moving. I very much was like, way slow down. I cannot do it. So if you were, say, in a relationship where one person goes, well, I'm not willing to change my ways, I want to move faster, I'm bored, and this person's like, I can't move any faster because I would rather go home. I literally said that. I'd rather go home and go back to the 9 to 5 than do this. If you can't find that ground in that meeting area, then it will be challenging. But I think that compromise is probably biggest thing that you have to do when you're traveling.
And I just want to be clear on what you just said. that wasn't a threat.
No,
in
not
any
in
way
any
at all
way. No.
towards me. And
No.
as a matter of fact, when she said it, I just thought it was ridiculous talk.
He didn't think I was serious.
But well, I knew at the time. I think this was in Italy.
This was
after fast travel.
Yeah.
A real fast travel, month and a half, and we hit that. Let's not video. Let's not do this part of Italy at all. Let's just take a week vacation, basically.
It was major overwhelm.
And so when she said it, I kind of said, no, I understand, because I was feeling a little bit of it myself. And I did want to try to move a little quicker, and quickly found out that I didn't want to. Basically, Carrie was right.
Well, you learned for yourself that, like, for you, it didn't work.
Right.
It wasn't me, like, you'll see.
You'll see.
But no, I mean, in no way was it, no way was it a threat.
No.
It was more so I had just reached my point of that if we didn't change back to a slower pace of travel, this wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't enjoyable. It had become work. And I didn't want to do it. And so thank goodness we were on the same page and we found that. But I would say that the biggest tip that we would give to any couples that are looking to travel full time, make sure that you are going through and asking yourselves every possible question that you can possibly imagine of all the scenarios.
Right.
The what ifs. What if we don't like this? What if you like this, but I don't like this? And just talk this all through, because we did that. And I think that is what saved us in a lot of those situations, because we had that backup.
Yeah, things were very clear before we even left. And, we tried to divert a little bit off that original plan, and we got right back onto it. And I think it's made things even that much more smooth since then. That was a year ago. So almost a year ago anyway. So I just think that if you talk things through, it can save a lot of potential headaches later on down the road. Yes.
Compromise. Another big and very valid concern is, and something we kind of talked about is, when you retire, say early, and you decide to travel, what if it doesn't work out? What if you do have to come back for some other reason, a family member is ill, or whatever the reason be, right?
What if you just want to?
Or if you just decide you want to go back.
Yes.
You're re-entering potentially, because for us personally, if we were to go back to the States, we could not necessarily afford to just be early retired. We would have to go back and get some sort of work, even if it's part-time. So you are faced with that re-entry to the workforce. It's not as easy to enter the workforce when you are, say, 60 years old or 50, even 55.
55.
So you kind of have to talk through that as well, of that it's not going to be as easy. I was always pretty lucky with when I would apply for jobs. I was pretty lucky in getting those jobs. But I don't know now,
right.
After you've been out of the workforce for a while, they also are going to be like, well, where have you been?
What is your identity? There will be an identity shift when you retire. What's your purpose? What have you achieved? You might look back, you might look forward, and kind of wonder, what the heck are you doing?
Right. I think that we face this, and one of the reasons that was a couple things of that starting YouTube. For me, I found it felt great to not have a schedule. It felt great to not have to go into a job at a set time. And but we right away jumped into YouTube.
Yes.
And at first it was like, it kind of feels like a lot of work, because in the beginning you don't get paid anything. You're just doing free work. But then after a while, it became something I wanted to do, because I very much realized I wasn't ready at 50. At the time, I was 50 years old.
Right.
I wasn't ready at that time to not have something to focus on and learn.
Yeah, and I was kind of the same way. I like to research and figure things out. And YouTube was perfect for that. Watched a lot of YouTube videos on camera gear, on computers, I still watch how-to videos on just about everything. Editing, I kind of go down a rabbit hole. Sometimes I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time going down this rabbit hole, but time is what I have. And if I can figure out a way to get better at this, I think Carrie, myself, and all of you would benefit greatly from that. So I wasn't ready either, and it's fun. It's fun meeting new people. It's fun being creative. It's fun trying to come up with a new way of doing something. And so for us, it's become our identity. And thank all of you for listening and watching, because if you weren't, we might not be doing it.
Right. So, I mean, you may find that you're completely, some people retire and they don't have any issue at all. Yeah. They are great letting that go. But if you find that that is something that you are still kind of missing, having that, you know, there's so many different options that you can find for on the road, whatever those are. You'll figure them out with whatever job that you were in. Right. But you'll find some other way to I don't know, make a new identity for yourself. Well, we hope that you found this helpful, either if you are in your process of retirement already, you're thinking about it, or you're on the road already traveling, that just maybe this just brought up some areas to discuss and talk about, or some areas that you're already experiencing and what you can maybe do different to make them more comfortable. Now, if you would like to find us on our other social platforms, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube at Brian and Carrie. And then you can find us on our website at brianandcarrietravels.com.
Thank you for joining us. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Join our community by subscribing, and if you have any questions, we'll answer them.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.